Hello guys, and welcome back to Honeytelligence. I'm Kayla, and today we are going to be talking about graduate school interviews. Okay, so a little background. I am going to physical therapy school at Emory School of Medicine starting in June. And I just wanted to talk about the interview and the application process of applying to physical therapy school, because there is not much content about this on YouTube, when I applied. So, to start with the application process, GPA, I have a decent GPA. I have about a 3.7, 3.8. I had a 3.15 on my GRE. I had a lot of research background, and I worked in an emergency room, so kind of a background of, me as an applicant. So I applied to 8 schools, 4 in the state, so I live in Florida, so 4 in the state and 4 out of state, and I got interviews at 4. Now, that being said, some of them didn't do interviews. University of South Carolina doesn't do interviews, University of South Florida doesn't do interviews. That's it. But anyway, so to start with, application process, the GRE. We'll start with the GRE. So for the GRE, how I studied, it's basically the SAT or ACT on steroids. So how I studied is I studied, it's not terribly difficult. The difficult part about it is the stuff that you know. So like the math, I'm strong in math. It was like college algebra math, which I hadn't taken since my first semester of freshman year. So it was very, very long time ago for me. So yeah, that was difficult. The other thing was vocabulary and grammar. As a, a STEM major, I didn't have as much of an English background as someone who, say, was an education major, an English major, a writing major, stuff like that. I don't have much grammar and English background. Just naturally, wasn't implemented into my education, unfortunately. So I had a few literature classes in college, but not terribly a lot. So what I did is I downloaded the Magoosh and the Kaplan, and Magoosh is UC Berkeley's version of like study stuff. And I used their flashcards, and I would study the vocabulary and the grammar, while waiting for classes, when I would be on social media, waiting for food, waiting for classes, at a red light, not suggested, but I did it, laying in bed, stuff like that. Any of those times I would be scrolling through Twitter, scrolling through Instagram, yada yada, I would try to study instead. So over time that adds up a lot. You don't really realize how much you're on social media, unfortunately, but that did happen. So I got about a 315, top is 340, I think average is about 300 to 310, I don't know. But most schools want a minimum of a 298 or 300 to get into physical therapy school. Application, lots of essays. Emory, where I'm attending, I think there were 4 different essays between 1,500 and 2,500 words or characters, I don't remember which. That was like 8 months ago I applied, oh my goodness, give me a break. Most of them had an essay of sorts, some of them didn't. What schools did it? I don't think FGCU, oh no, I didn't apply there. USF didn't have an essay. UCF didn't have an essay. Yeah, so application wise. So then we'll start with interviews. So I had interview invitations from 4 different schools. I only went to 2 of the interviews because the second was Emory and I got in, and that was my first choice, so I just didn't attend the other 2. So I got interviews with UCF, UNF, Emory, and Duke. So my first interview was with UCF in about mid-December. No, was it early December? It was mid-December. It was definitely mid-December. I want to say it was December 13th or something like that. So I was the first round of interviews. They had 3 groups of like 25 to 30 people. I think they accept 30 people into the program. I could be totally wrong. I'm pretty sure it's a pretty small program. So There were about 25 of us. It was group interviews. We were in groups of 2 to 3 people. Basically, the total process was less than, 3 hours or so. We came in, they gave us a little introduction to the school, and then we went straight into interviews. We had 2 rounds of interviews. So we were interviewed by one staff member, being like a professor, a current student, an alumni, and a PT from the area. So these were the 4, and we were in groups, and I like group interviews. I know a lot of people are like, group interviews, but they really relieve you. It's not as much as like, the light's on you, you get like all hands on deck, like look at me. It's more, okay, so person X is gonna talk right now, we're gonna listen to them, and then this person, and then it's your turn, and whatever order they ask. So the way it worked was basically they'd be like, okay, well Kayla, can you tell us an experience from your undergraduate career that really shaped you as an individual you are now? And it was like off the cuff, right on top. You had to be like, okay, yes, I tutored chemistry and blah, 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 blah. Or list a problem you had in your life and how you overcame it. Really like corny questions like that. And then there were a few like PT related questions. So if you had a patient that called and complained because you quote unquote touched them inappropriately when you were just doing manual manipulation on their hip because they had a hip surgery, how would you approach that situation? And stuff like that. And there is no right answer. They just want to see how you answer and how confidently you are and stuff like that. So it's a big like confident thing. I don't know. I'm decently confident. I'm not terribly honestly, I'm not that confident. But I did do like news crew in high school, and I did debate competitions, and I made public speaking, so you just have to fake it. I literally just faked it in my interview. Not that I didn't lie at all, but like confidence wise, when I was like freaking out inside, I can't think of something, I was just like, oh, haha, like, let me think for a second, and then went with it. So about 2 weeks after I applied to UCF, I did get in, but I did reject them because I had also gotten into Emory at that point. So I interviewed with Emory. Emory's situation was a little different. It was really awesome. So they had 2 rounds of interviews. I was in the first class of interviews. There were about 70 people there. We were split into groups of 12, and we had about 6 activities with a lunch break in the middle. So it was like information for around Atlanta, a Q&A with current students, a tour of the school, I'm trying to think of the sequence, around Atlanta, the actual interviews, and then like their research laboratories. So like 60 different activities and lunch. They gave us lunch. It was super awesome, super nice. So we came in, had an introduction, and went into rounds. So my group, I was the 6th group to get interviewed, which was the last group of the day. I was terrified, but honestly, I wouldn't change it. It was awesome. I got acclimated to the school. I got to see everything. I got to, talk to the students and hear about their, their experience at the school and the research aspect and everything. It was really awesome. So by the time I got to my interview, I was like, hey, we're home. This is my home. What up? Like, I'm annoying. I'm sorry. So, anyway, we got into the interview. It was also a group interview, but only 2 people. It was a 2-on-2. So 2 professors and 2 students, and myself and another girl, and we only had 1 round of interviews, which I was like, well, these 2 guys are determining my entire future right now. Stress. But anyways, it went well. Obviously, I got in. So I really liked the girl I was with. I liked the people I was with on both interviews. We had a lot in common. And like I said, for both interviews, PT students just aren't as cutthroat as other like medical programs. Like, I was pre-med for a while, and those students are just like, I gotta beat everyone on this exam, I gotta be the curve crusher, so blah blah blah, can't da-da-da. Like, medical school students are mean to one another. PT students like, hey, we're all here, they want us all, like, let's be friends. And that's a generalized stereotype, like, it's not everybody, obviously. But in my situation, it was a really nice, getting to know people. It was awesome, And we were just like friends, and I got to know the girl the entire day, and then we had interviews together. And I don't know if she got in, but I hope she did. It was great. Anyways, interview questions very similar to UCF's, the same type of thing, but the thing I really liked is at the end they're like, do you have any questions for us? Which I'm like, I do actually. So one of them worked with prosthetics and orthotics research, which is my absolute passion, why I want to be a PT, want to do research in that eventually. Perfect person to put me in an interview with. So I pestered him about that, talked about research and everything about that. We talked about like meniscus repairs in the knees and stuff like that, because I'm really interested in that as well. And the other guy was a biomedical ethics professor, and I took that my sophomore year of college. My absolute favorite professor ever. He was also my anatomy professor, so I had lots to talk about. And the thing about physical therapy is there's a lot of gray area with malpractice, malpractice cases, because you're physically touching the patients a lot of the times, and culturally, or maybe it's a man touching a woman for a hip replacement and you have to touch the buttocks or stuff like that, and it's not sexual at all, but it can come across that way. So it's kind of not like to the level of a massage therapist, but very similar. It's kind of like, where do we draw the line? Like, professionally, I have to touch your body as a physical therapist in most cases, and yes, it's important to be like, is it okay if I touch you there? And the consent to that and stuff like that. But there is a lot of gray area of physical therapy because of that, and I got to talk to him about that, which was really, really, really awesome. So I heard from Emory about a week later. No, it was a week to the day. I remember I was tutoring. I got an email. I went to the bathroom and I looked at the email and I was like crying. I started crying in the bathroom because it was, like I said, it was my top choice. I went and told my boss at the tutoring center and my friends there like first, because I was like, hi, I got an Emory, oh my god. So I got that. So I canceled my interview with the other two schools because I got my top choice. I'm not going to waste my time, money, travel, as well as not wasting their time for someone who deserves a seat. If I'm not going to take the seat, I don't want to just see if I can get into schools to see if I can get into schools. That's ridiculous. I got into where I wanted to, and I'm going to stick with that. The last one to talk about is what I wore. So the funny thing for UCF, I don't know why I thought I could fit into something I fit into at 12. Like I said, I did debate competitions and dog showing and stuff, so I have a lot of professional clothing for someone my age and not being in the business realm at all whatsoever. So I have this like black pencil skirt, button down. I'm like, yes, I'm gonna look cute, classy. I brought my blazer, blah blah blah, great. And then I put it on in something you have in your 20s that you didn't have at 12, are hips. The skirt didn't fit, so it was kind of a last minute run. I don't live with my parents. I didn't have clothes. My apartment's an hour and a half away from my parents. I didn't have time to go back, so I had to like just buy something. So I ended up with like a business like jumpsuit thing. It showed off my guns. PT's got guns. So I wore that, and it's probably not the most professional thing, but I wore it with heels and it worked out. Obviously, I got in, so it wasn't the worst thing. I wasn't the least professionally dressed there that day. There was a girl in like a really short skirt and like a tank top, and I was like, yikes. Please dress professionally to a graduate school interview. You're going to be interviewing to be a doctor of something. It's a professional environment. Emory interview, I got a skirt that fit. Pantyhose, shoes, heels, blazer, button down, like blouse. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for watching. We upload every Sunday and Thursday. I will upload next Sunday, and Hannah's going to be uploading Thursday on her same interview process for graduate school, but in her case it is for a psychology master's program, and I'll let her get more details in that. And yeah, thanks for watching.